himself as a monologuist.
When's the last time you saw a 71 Nova 4-door sedan with a straight 6 250? Yep. From Minnesota. Maybe it's from Hibbing, Minnesota. Maybe it was Bob Dylan's car when he was growing up there. Actually, he grew up in the 60s. It's a 71 Nova. Nova in Spanish it means doesn't go. Pretty good shape, an old Nova. Where are we? We're in Fort Myers. We're heading to Lover's Key. Two-wheel drive. Bet on that. Everything here is two-wheel drive.
That you've invented. What happens in my case is that if you'd said to me, did I actually scatter my mum's ashes in that suburban garden when I lived away, I would have after a while almost believed that I had. In fact, they were still in an urn waiting to be scattered in my house. So it's a curious thing that the mind plays sometimes that by
I thought you'd like to see us going over the bridge.
Yourself.
And in Mike Daisy's
lots of water in Florida, that's for sure.
The monologue that he stages, he's performed this over the weekend, and he's given an explanation before the show in the light of the retraction from This American Life. One of the lines that he says, the whole attempt to shine a light at something to get at the truth. So we're talking about two different ideas of truth, isn't it?
Well, it's funny because, I was thinking about your question about whether, I've ever fabricated things, and I think we do it all the time. I mean, anytime an interesting story happens, and we want to tell our friends or our wives or whoever, there's a temptation to make it juicier, sexier, more exciting, more frightening, because we want to hold our audience's attention. And I think specifically when you're an activist and you've been working on a cause tirelessly, and you see that, it's very, very
lunchtime.
Very few people were talking about Apple. People started talking about Apple globally, I would argue, in large part thanks to Mike Daisy's monologue.
Right in the middle of the road. Better watch
my
it.
argument
Never know
still,
who's making videos.
Is
playing with small electronic devices.
To exaggerating a story, to
all
bending
traffic
truth.
must yield trolleys. Minimum fine $113.
And the way to do that is just to work a little bit harder at getting, at what's really extraordinary about the facts.
Yeah, that maybe I have a great deal of sympathy for that. There's an old, there's that old adage, isn't there? Both in acting and writing, is that even if it isn't true, it should be. And I think you've put your finger on a very good point there, which is that the temptation to just crisp up the story, because you just know that if you can just give it a bit of edge, a bit of point to it, that it will suddenly start to attract people's attention in a way that as it is when you're discovering the story, it isn't quite there. The temptation can be colossal, and certainly, with my acting hat on, I've worked on projects in the past where I've known that I've been required to deliver lines which I know couldn't possibly have been said, but they they were almost certainly probably true.
What say you when you're acting a part that
junk?
Yeah, a few years ago, for the BBC, I played what at the time was one of Britain's most infamous murderers, simply because I happened to have a good physical likeness to him in a poor light. And I remember very clearly there was a scene where I was, this guy was an amateur sculptor, and I was doing this scene where I was chipping away at this creating a head out of stone. And you can imagine the director said, "Michael, I wonder whether you could just really chip that stone and we'll just close in on these murderous eyes." And I'm thinking, now, hang on, this guy was, it's already, I could just feel that the whole direction of this program was starting to be just juiced up in order to get the idea that this man could commit murder. Of course, the irony is, and perhaps this is the point of this whole story, is that the guy was acquitted on appeal about 3 years later and is now a free man. So it gives you an idea of, how difficult it can be when you're trying to get to the truth, knowing what to leave out.
Let me introduce you to Jeremy Barker, who's also in New York. He's editor of the website Culture Bot, which is a theatre website. Jeremy, welcome to World Have You Say.
Hey, thank you very much for having me.
We're sitting in traffic, 5 miles to go, not looking good.
New York. What's first of all, your response to what you've heard over the last